Well, it is. I am legitimately not only professionally thrilled, but super personally thrilled to be joined by the creators of South Park themselves, Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Guys, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
for taking the time.
Yes, thank you.
Let's start with, so we got a new game, South Park: The Fractured Butthole, which is the greatest title for any video game of all time.
We were really, we came up with the title and like, well shit, now we gotta make the game, because that's a pretty sweet title.
So tell me there's a good story behind that title.
No, you know what the story is Trey came up with it, and he texted it to me, and it was like this text. And I was like, that's weird, that's not funny. And I actually didn't respond for like 10 minutes. It fucking took me like 5 or 10 minutes. Because it just sent a text, and I was like, oh, that's a good, I think that, and then I had to I think I said it out loud or something. I was like, oh yeah. So no, that story is that, I forgot, because we had to come up with a name because of this.
Yeah.
Because of this announcement. And we've been working on the game for better part of a year.
Yeah.
And
since you finished the last one, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're well into, this is not something we're announcing and we're going to work on it tomorrow. We're well into it. We've been working on it for a while, and then we had to come up with a name because of the forces of nature says we have to, launch a game at, E3 and do it. So that's what.
But we did know, a lot of the because we've actually been working on this game for almost a year now, actually a little more than a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, some of the big questions that the last game made us ask of like, could a fart really do that? Taking into the new one of like, could you ever fart so bad that it bent time? And so that's really where a lot of this, a lot of the things we were trying to explore in this episode, because we're trying to make, we really want this to be the next episode of Stick of Truth, not just like, okay, forget all that. We're really tracking you as the new kid and that kid and sort of getting now into his backstory and why was his ass able to do all of those things that he did in Stick of Truth, and is he able to actually fart to such a degree that he can bend time?
Well, you guys have found a bit of a liking for continuity lately, just even with the show too. After it seemed like for years, we're just like, forget it.
Yeah, it's kind of liberating in a way because when we started doing shows that we started doing 3 and 4 part shows, and it's kind of nice to go into the writer's room and being like, okay, we have a starting point. Instead of just like, okay, it's all up in the air again, you know what I mean? And so you still come up with, just as much stuff, but sometimes it's really nice to have a few restraints.
So given the joke built into the title, what were some of the rejected titles from the whiteboard? There had to be
this
a list,
I thought of this, I knew it was it. Yeah, it was like this.
Texted it to me, and I was like, "Yeah, that's rad." Like I said, it did come out of like the trying to come up with the real theme of the game, being you're the new kid. And then you're always trying to get accepted by the other kids. Like that was the thing about Stick of Truth is like putting you, if you're the person playing, you're the player in the unenviable position of trying to impress our boys, and trying to be their friend when of course they're going to beat you up and treat you like a piece of shit. So putting you back in that position, but then trying to do, I don't know, it came from trying to make fun of like, I keep thinking of like Max Payne and like big movies do this and sort of big games think they need to do this too, which is there's the external problem, there's the big environmental problem, but then you have your own inner struggle, the thing that's like fueling you. And superhero movies do that for sure. Like every superhero has their ridiculously overwrought backstory so that you know why they do ridiculous things for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? Like
my parents are dead.
My parents are dead, and I saw this thing. It was like the most hardcore thing. So that's why I dress up like a bat and I go out every night and I risk my, just because basically it doesn't make superheroes don't make any sense of why they do what they do, so you have to invest them with this hardcore backstory. And then we thought, well, this backstory has to do with your ass and did it break?
Literal backstory.
Your literal backstory and the emotional heft of your internal story comes from
your
ass.
If you could fart so big that it bent time, would that fracture your asshole?
Yeah.
That's really the big question we're asking.
And then we got to this title.
So you're sticking with the sort of Paper Mario style, light turn-based RPG.
To some degree, I mean, that's the thing is that we felt like at the end of Stick of Truth, like right at the end, we figured it out.
Yeah.
And we're like, fuck. And then we had this, then the game had to come out, and we were like, no, now we know what to do. And so it was really like, the whole reason we decided to do this was because we just felt like there's so many things we wanted in Stick of Truth that we would have needed to have started from the beginning when we didn't know anything. And we're like, boy, if we did this if we did it again, I think we really felt like we could do something really cool.
It's still the same thing where it looks like you're in an episode of South Park.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, like I think that when you start up the game, it'll have that exact same aesthetic. It's like the Stick of Truth where you're in South Park. I think it's going to be much more version 2.0. The combat's going to be better. Everything's going to be better and bigger and like more expansive in it. But it starts with that same language.
I mean, you guys are legit gamers. You've proven it over the years. So were you tempted by other genres? You said, all right, if I'm gonna make a video game again, maybe I want to do a turn-based strategy game or a point-and-click adventure or something.
You know, we felt we wanted to take all the good things about Stick of Truth and make them better and get rid of all the things we didn't like about Stick of Truth, which there was a lot. And there was, we kind of had this bittersweet feeling when it came out, and it seemed, that people generally liked it. We were kind of like, yeah, but, because we had this thing in our head of like, yeah, but we knew what it could have been, and that's why we're now driven to do the second one, not because, not by any means we want to do the same thing. We really want to do fucking Mad Max. That's all. Then you go see Mad Max. You're like, oh yeah, you're supposed to really care and try. And
We want to build. I think we started like a language and a grammar that we want to continue and build on, and to reinvent it. I mean, part of it is doing the game. For both of us, I think it made me I respect video games as an art form much more after having suffered through doing one, and you realize how hard it is to make all of that click. And I don't think either one of us or anybody wants to go back to the beginning and reimagine everything about it. It's taking what we did and build upon it, Yeah,
I mean, I grew up on like the Monkey Islands of the world, the point and click. South Park would seem like a natural fit for point and click, but sadly nobody seems to buy those anymore.
Yeah.
Were you guys ever tempted to go that route where it's more of a dialogue-driven adventure game?
No, because I really, I think it is somewhat dialogue-driven just because of the other characters, but I always say that my favorite thing in playing a game and being a gamer as a kid or even now is playing a character that's an empty slate. I loved Link. I loved Link because he didn't talk. And I loved him because there weren't menu choices and it wasn't like, okay, you can say one of these three things. And I know they're all going to lead the same fucking thing. But especially games that even now give you three options of things to say and you click on it and then you hear the thing say and you're like, I don't sound like that. And so that was one thing that we really thought was cool about the first game and that we fought for was having this character who didn't talk, because I think when the character you're playing doesn't talk, you fill those thoughts in your head. And that's a really cool thing. You're like, okay, I know what he's thinking. And as soon as he says something, it's like, well, that wasn't what I was thinking. So taking that character and expanding on it even more and saying, can we now build that character and make him even a stronger character without saying anything? And that's the cool challenge for us.
So you guys had done interviews towards the end of Stick of Truth where you, as like you alluded to a minute ago, Matt, where making games is way harder than you guys have made movies, plays, all kinds of stuff. That you talked about how tough it was to make a game. I kind of got the sense as a fan that I would read those things and think, oh man, I guess Stick of Truth is the only video game we're ever going to get.
That was the right. That was
Trey.
That was the exact right conclusion to make. We felt the same exact way.
That mostly comes from the fact that we're whiny babies, and we almost anything. You could probably have found us in an interview about 2 months before Book of Mormon coming out saying we'll never make a Broadway show again. And like I just said too, I'm pretty sure that after Matt and I made the pilot of South Park, we said, well, we're never doing that again. You get beaten down by something and you need that time to kind of recover and go, yeah, okay, that was pretty cool. But also it just seemed like for a while oh, it's just so hard. But then your brain starts going, yeah, but if you started it this way, and if you did it that, and we're both, because that's what just as much as we love getting into comedy, Matt and I just love figuring shit out. And so your brain starts just going, oh yeah, but if you did this, and if you did that, and if you started the game by doing that, and then starts to go, and it's funny because I think we both came to the conclusion about the same time, where even either one of us would have been like, at first thinking, you want to do another video game? The other would be like, fuck you, But we were kind of like, we should do this again.
Broaching the subject was kind of tender.
Like, yeah, I think
had this thought of maybe a sort of, kind of, maybe we should.
I mean, you guys have talked too. I think I read that for Stick of Truth, you guys wrote way more.
Yeah,
way more. So is a lot of that the foundations, like story-wise at all for this, or is that
No, a lot of that's ended up in the show.
Yeah, no, the show. No, that's where we walked into a total like buzzsaw. I mean, we walked ourselves into a buzzsaw of like thinking we knew how to make a game before we knew how to make a game.
Yeah.
And we've totally done that before too with puppet movie, with animation.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think we came into it with the humility that we didn't. You know, we should have in the beginning. This time, I think we have that, but we also kind of know more. And one of the things we haven't been doing over the last year is we didn't write 100 pages, and then we started with more technical discussions with the team, and so there's more. So the gameplay and the script and everything is talking to each other. So we're there more for level design meetings than we were at the beginning of Stick of Truth, and we have level designers and the technical people doing the game there for the narrative too, because they're all really, you know, like accomplished gamers, and there's narrative things too that they're like, well, that'd be fun, but as a fan, we need to hear that too. So both sides, I think, are talking to each other more at the beginning now,
right?
And which obviously is like fucking duh, but it took us till to the whole game to figure that out, you know.
Is the new game going to tie into the show at all again, the way that Stick of Truth sort of was
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of
sure it
Black
will.
Friday
I'm
stuff?
sure it will. But we also like just sort of the lore of this new kid. We're gonna probably start talking about him in the show because we love the idea that we just think it's a cool idea that there is this character in South Park that is you.
Right.
You know, and
who doesn't
so,
talk.
Yeah.
It's a new kid, and that always means that's the blank slate of you.
Yeah.
And really, this game we're saying is kind of the next day after Stick of Truth.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it's a continuing. The kids are now dressing up as something different and going off on a new adventure, and it gives us a whole reason to reinvent everything. But that there's still this underlying kind of meta narrative underneath. It's the kids. This is the next day.
So you guys mentioned earlier in our chat here about, you know, picking up with the stuff that worked toward the end of the game. What do you see as kind of those things that worked about Stick of Truth versus the things you want to just throw out the window that you feel like didn't work?
Well, I honestly think at first we were fighting so hard against the sort of turn-based combat because, you know, it just felt so old school. We're like, can't we get this more Zelda-like, whatever? And it actually ended up really helping for the writing and for timing of jokes and things like that. So it was really taking that and saying, all right, what can we take that's good about that, which is a pace issue and things like that, but how can we make, you know, we really wanted the combat to be, in this one, to be a lot more game heavy and cool and interesting and new and you know, so I think that's why we knew, let's from day one all sit together in a room rather than it being, okay, us writing and then handing it off and saying, show us what you got. Let's all get together in a room, because we also, by the end of Stick of Truth, just found all the people we really clicked with.
Yeah.
You know, and then it was like, okay, now let's just get all those people who we think are really smart, really cool, and just start all laughing together rather than trying to say, here's what we wrote, now go make it work, you know. And so I think that's the most important difference in this.
I would suspect from the title the answer here is yes, but do you anticipate running into trouble with the various ratings boards around the globe again?
You always do.
You know what's so funny? It's like when
Do you
that happened,
want to?
That's what happened. No, we never want to. It's just always a pain in the ass. And just when we had those things with the ESRB, I was like, of course we had that happen.
Yeah.
Of course we.
The only thing we ever did where we didn't run into that at all was Book of Mormon, because
There is
on
no
the
ratings
Broadway
board.
stage there is no MPAA.
Yeah,
There's no, and we were actually kind of like, okay, we're gonna do this, and they're like, okay, and we're like, wait, what? No, we shouldn't do that. You know, I was like, no, that's fucked up though. We shouldn't do that.
On the note of Book of Mormon, as someone who hasn't had a chance to see it yet for various reasons, is there any chance we'll see a feature film adaptation at any point along the way? I mean, you guys have made musicals on the big screen before.
It's something we want to do. We don't have any specific plans, but yeah, we'd love to do it at some point.
Sometimes, yeah, it's like that you want to, like, you know, because it's just so crazy that it's still, that's the craziest thing about doing state is that, like, you know, it's going on in 3 different places in 3 hours.
Right.
And like now there's a bunch of people in it we've never even met before, you know, and things like that. And so just being able to kind of get a definitive version back together sounds like a good thing maybe someday, but
Work
it's
with
definitely
Bobby.
not.
We're gonna Bobby again.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah.
fun. I mean, everything about it sounds fun. We just haven't really talked about it that much yet.
How about making a game that isn't South Park? Is that something you guys ever want to do?
I don't know. Like, I think, I don't think sure, but I guess that this same humility that I'm trying to say that we learned on that last game, I think that like having a game where we have Cartman and we can just pull on the character Cartman, it's like we know where we are. And I don't know. Like, I'm hoping more that we can just keep doing more South Park game stuff and make that a bigger part of South Park because it seems like the perfect vessel for it. But to go outside of that, we just have to like, it'll be really hard.
Right.
You know.
I mean, how are you guys feeling about doing the show? Do you think you'll keep going after the current deal is up? I mean, you've got some awesome longevity going.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We always say, every season about 3 shows in, we're like, okay, this should be the last season. And then the season gets over. It's the same as doing the game. And then, we go away for a couple months. We're like, that was pretty good. Let's do it again, whatever. And so we're just whiny babies.
Whiny babies. I think that's what you want to take out of it. We're whiny babies.
Me, our job's hard.
Do you guys have personal, like, top 5 favorite South Park episodes ever, or do they just all run together for you?
Well, they don't all run. Yeah, I have some ones that I don't like if I think about it. I mean,
at this point, it's really hard.
So many.
Really, like now, after 20 years, it's basically just like sometimes someone will put one on, and I'll just be like, oh, what's going to happen now? Like I've completely
forgotten. Yeah, we kind of start when we get back in the office for a season. There's always this kind of not ritual where we kind of sit down and watch episodes from the last few seasons from like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and we're sitting there like. Yeah. Like, I have no idea what happens in this. I can't remember this at all. And then it's like really funny. Of course we think that's funny.
But it also sucks out of this. We've had so many times now, and they get more and more where we come up with a thing like, oh, we should do a show about this. We're like, oh yeah, and then Stan does that, and we'll go for hours, and then we'll be like, and then someone will go, we did this 4 years ago. We're like, oh, it used to be, someone would come and go, Simpsons did this. We're like, oh shit.
No, you
now it's like, no, you did this.
You did it, you forgot.
Like, no, but this is Stan doing it. No, you did the exact same thing. It's like, oh, that's why it's so funny.
So in season when the show's going on, what's a typical day like for you guys? I mean, that's I've seen 6 days to air, but what happens when you wake up and what's the day look like for you guys?
Wake up, you go to work, you drink a bunch of coffee, and you sit in that fucking room for however long it takes to at least be able to write enough. And you don't know whether you're writing a scene in the middle, the beginning, the end. You don't even know where it all. When it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you're just trying to get an idea out there, kind of. And then it gets to be Monday and Tuesday, and it's just torture and hell.
I think one out of every, let's say we do 10 shows a season. I think there's one, maybe 2, but there's usually one where we have an idea. This should cut and fold like this, and it kind of does. And the days are like groovy, and it's like, and it's sweet, and the episode's good. We're like, that was sweet. Yeah. And it's like one time per season.
One time per season. It used to be like 3
and we don't know when that, and we don't know when that's going to happen. And the rest of them are just sort of like Trey said, reinventing the wheel every week, and then getting.
But what's so crazy is that the shows almost always too. A lot of the times, the shows that on Thursday you're like, oh, and then this, then Friday, and you get through it like that. You're like, this will be easy. It gets out there and people are like, man.
Yeah, they're only like.
But the shows where you're like Monday, Tuesday, it's like this sucks. It doesn't make any sense. Like, let's just save it. Let's just do what we can. We got to get something on the air. Just get on the air. And people are like, that was amazing. Because you're just not second and third guessing yourself.
People love reactive, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Have you guys thought about what the last episode of South Park would be? Like, is there an idea going between the two of you?
I think it's going to end with a fizzle for sure. I think it's just going to end with some dud, and we're going to go, fuck this, man, and walk away.
Some sort of whimper. Yeah. Either drop the mic, get sued, get thrown off television, something like. I don't know. We're not.
We always thought we thought that for 18 years. We're like, all right, well, they're gonna they're gonna cancel us.
We're waiting
sure.
for it.
We've been waiting to get canceled for 18 fucking years.
Yeah, we won't stop until we get canceled.
And now
we're renewing. They have to fucking cancel us. God damn it.
Just circling back to finish up with again, we know you guys really did grow up playing games like the rest of us. What were your sort of personal games of the year for last year? What did you guys enjoy playing?
I played, like on little games, I thought Monument Valley, like everybody else, I thought that was amazing. And I've been playing Grand Theft Auto, mostly to kind of like, I've been playing games, to riff on it and like, look what other big games are doing. So I've been playing Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, I will say that's true. I actually probably spent more time playing the last Grand Theft Auto last year, just because I just think, if you want to look at an example of like, what is a great fucking game, like that's and it still is the only thing that I can really lose myself in.
The audacity and bigness of that game is just fucking mind.
I was just saying, lately I've just been playing the app version of Baldur's Gate 2. That was a great fucking game.
It's 200 hours on your iPad.
It's amazing.
I don't need that. I don't need that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say FIFA, because I play FIFA all the time. But I kind of forget that. That's sort of like background.
It's not even really a game.
It shows up once a year.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to the subscription service of FIFA that I I'll buy all of them and
I've really switched over to board games. I
Yeah.
like play so many more board games now. I don't know why.
Is it just because you're making a video game and you just are
Maybe
too...
probably same reason I don't go home and watch comedies. You know?
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah.
See? Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they play the same games the rest of us
Yeah.
play. Guys, thank you so much.
Cool,
That was
thank you.
an absolute treat.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Right on. Thank you.